Greetings, traveler. My name is Santos. I've been working in the games industry for over 10 years now. And I remember trying to explain what game design is or how we approach making a game to somebody who knows nothing about game design. Moreover, somebody who knows nothing about games. So I was sitting there trying to explain all the mechanics and how they fit together and what the game is about. And my friend who I was talking to would only become more and more confused. He had never played video games. He had no interest until that time, but he wanted to know more about what I do and how we design these things. So the more I explained, the more confused he became. I had no luck convincing him. I couldn't get my message through at all. And that got me thinking, what is the closest thing that we can relate game design to that basically anybody could understand? And something everybody does is eat food. So the more I thought about that, the more I realized that actually there's a lot of commonalities between game design and creating games and food or cooking and so on. So today I want to talk about that, what I came across as being very common between these two fields, and two very specific lessons I learned from my research into food and cooking and so on. So today I want to talk about how eating food is surprisingly similar to game design, and the two things I learned studying cooking and how restaurants do their business and how this relates back to us making games. So how is cooking like game design? Well, it's extremely subjective, right? How much somebody likes a game is subjective. It's just like food. You cannot say, everybody likes pasta or everybody likes soup or anything at all. You cannot make a statement like that because there's definitely going to be someone who doesn't like that food. So it's the same with games. You can't really argue that one game or the other are universally liked. Moreover, what's extremely complicated about this, and it's the same for food, you can't even say the same thing about a certain category of food. So if you take, for example, all people who like pasta, and you ask them what they like or what's their favorite thing about pasta, they will all have different opinions. If you have a very good pasta dish and you present it to people who specifically like pasta, not all of them will like it. And this applies to basically all foods on the planet ever. So it's amazing how universal this is to humans, and it informs us about how games are very much so. People who like fighting games don't like all fighting games, right? People who like RPGs don't like all RPGs. And they can give you very specific reasons about what they like and what they dislike about each game that is supposed to be in this category. So it's really impossible to know exactly what people like about a game or a dish for that matter. So even if someone says, you know what, I really like that popular dish from the restaurant around the corner, you know that they say that they liked it, but you do not know why they like it or what they like about it. Moreover, how much someone likes a dish and how often they go to buy it at a certain restaurant or make it at home and so on seemingly has no correlation. Maybe your favorite food in the world is whatever it is, but you only eat it once a year, right? Or other people eat it once per 3 months, even though for both of these categories, it's their favorite food in the world. And the same thing happens with games. Someone who says, oh, my favorite game is this, perhaps they play it once a year, or perhaps they only played it when they were younger and never play it anymore. So there's a lot of nuance in there, and it does a lot to delineate how much people like something, how what they like exactly about this thing, and what this tells about their consumption frequency of that thing. So to put all this together, here's the two lessons I learned from food. The first one is you really can't know what people like. You cannot know if they like the food overall, or if they like elements of the food, or if they like the situation in which that food is served. You just don't know. The only thing you can know for certain with enough data is what people order. So if you go to a restaurant and you see a huge line of people waiting to get in, you know that for some reason, all these people lining up to get in want to eat food there, or they want to sit down and eat and order something there. That you know for a fact. Or if you see a restaurant full of people, you know that for some reason, all these people are there. Moreover, inside that restaurant might have 10 different items on the menu, right? But you don't know which one people choose the most, just by observing. Maybe one day they choose one and another day another dish is popular. However, the restaurant owner knows more, specifically what people like, because the restaurant owner knows what people order, at which frequency, how many dishes of this, how many drinks of that. The data exists, and it becomes very clear what people's preference is in that specific environment. Now, we're not restaurant owners, we make video games. And just like restaurants, we each have our own video game or games that we're working on, and we have these stats available to us. So one thing that stands out from studying food for me and cooking in restaurants and so on is that despite this tumultuous cloud of likes and dislikes and whimsiness when it comes to what everyone likes, there is data to show what people actually consume and what people, which areas rather the people want to stay in, which things they want to consume for a long time, multiple times, how much, and so on. This is measurable, and this illuminates our way much more concerning what people like and how much they like it, than discussing if something is good or trying to decipher why somebody likes a certain game element or game type and so on. The actual consumption and the engagement, more critically, is the key stat here that we can measure to see if something is fun to do or not. So I heard this quote recently that said, well, you know, people have very short attention spans today, so perhaps they don't have enough attention to watch a 9-second video and they quit halfway even though it's 9 seconds. So people might think, you know, people have shorter attention spans these days. But that's not true. People still binge watch entire drama series, people still read books, people still will look at a social app for many hours per day, sometimes continuously. So it's not really about people having shorter attention spans or time and so on. People still have the same physiology, and they still have the same time as thousands of years ago. So it's more about what's relevant to them and the value it has to them and how much they want to engage, rather than some grand change in the human race. So that was a really important lesson for me, and it gave me a way to accurately measure, in a way that's not subjective, what people engage with and what they like, in that sense. The other lesson is people will like components of the flavor or of a dish rather than everything about a dish. So this means that when people say, oh, I like so and so, it doesn't necessarily mean they like 100% of whatever is in that food. Exactly the same goes for games. If you say, oh, I love that game, but I hate its UI, it's something that players will say all the time, right? I love the character design, but I hate the music, or I don't even remember what the music was like. That's something that people say a lot. So when we're thinking about how we're presenting our game, it benefits us, and certainly benefited me in my career up to now, to talk about specifics about the game. Saying that you work on an awesome action game doesn't say anything about the game other than it's an action game. But even the awesome action part is debatable, because awesome is completely subjective, and action, well, people have different likes when it comes to action, and there's more intense and less intense and more peaceful and so on. So it's really up to the person to decide. What is more interesting is rather than advertising everything about your game, talking about how each component is different from other games of that type is way more valuable, and it conveys much more information to the other player. Now, why is this a lesson? Well, when we talk about these specifics, we give our players opportunities to notice how this game is specifically relevant to their likes. So if you have ever picked up a game box, or if you see its description on its platform page or on its website or something, it will usually have a grand title up the top. There's going to be some images, and then games that do this well go into details about what's specifically good about this game, and more importantly, how it's different from other games that are of the similar type. They will say, I don't know, groundbreaking 3D visual effects, or combat system that doesn't rely on menu-based selections, or fluid animations that blend perfectly with cutscenes, or something that when you read, you will think, you know what? Yes, I want that, because when I played that other game, it didn't have it, and I didn't enjoy it as much. So this is something I'm looking forward to. And when that happens in the player's mind, when they find specifically what's good about this game and what kind of fun they can look forward to, that becomes a reason to play that game. Even if there's 10 of these bullet points describing a game, one is usually enough for a player to say, you know what, I want to try this. So that's it for today. That's my quick thoughts on games and food, and how it's relevant and how it's all connected, since it's so subjective and so easy to relate to everybody in the world, basically. If you know someone who is having trouble explaining how game design works, or how making a game works, perhaps next time talking about food and how you cook, or how you think of a new food recipe, is actually very similar, and all its subjectiveness, tumultuous and crazy as it might be, it's just more fun, and it gives more excuses for people to try something new. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this, and as always,